I'm Victoria. I'm 45. And on my wedding day after 15 years of widowhood, I found my 24-year-old daughter in our bed with my fiancé. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I took photographs. Then I served the wedding cake to 120 guests, gave a toast, and projected the photos on the screen we'd rented for memories of the day. My daughter ran from the hall crying. My fiancé tried to explain. And I, microphone in hand, said, 24 years ago, I had a daughter who stole 20 years of sleep, career, and life from me. Today, that same daughter stole the man I thought would help me reclaim them. But there's something she doesn't know. This man is not my fiancé. He's a private detective I hired 6 months ago. And the photos you just saw are the evidence I needed to prove that my daughter has been stealing from my company for 3 years, slept with my last boyfriend 5 years ago, and now tried to destroy the only thing I believed was mine, my capacity to love. The ring he gave her this morning is mine. I bought it. The bed is mine. The house is mine. And she, like everything else, is just a loan that expires today. I built my first boutique at 28, the year my husband died. He was a surgeon, I was a design student, and Camilla was 3 years old, sleeping in a drawer at the back of the store while I sewed samples and negotiated with suppliers who didn't take women seriously. The accident was ordinary, a truck, a red light, a death that was instant and therefore almost gentle because it left no time for hope. I was left with a daughter who screamed every night for 6 months, a mortgage I couldn't pay, and a talent for fashion that I had abandoned for marriage and motherhood. I rebuilt. Not immediately, not heroically, but piece by piece, with the desperation of a woman who has no alternative. I sewed at night, sold during the day, hired a neighbor to watch Camilla, fired her when I found her sleeping on the job, hired another, learned to trust no one with my child because my child was the only thing I had left of the life I was supposed to live. By 35, I had 3 boutiques. By 40, 8. By 45, 12 cities, a portfolio worth $8 million, and a reputation for designs that were elegant without being ostentatious, expensive without being inaccessible, the kind of clothing that made women feel powerful without demanding they perform power. I was successful. I was exhausted. I was alone, not completely alone. I had Camilla, my daughter, my princess, my product of grief and reconstruction. She grew up in boutiques, playing with fabric scraps, trying on samples, learning to critique hemlines before she could read. I gave her everything I hadn't had: design school, a title in the company, an apartment in the best district, a car she didn't need to earn. I told myself this was love. I told myself this was compensation for the father she lost, the mother who was always working, the childhood that was always interrupted by inventory counts and supplier meetings, and the endless demands of building something from nothing. Camilla was beautiful. She was talented in a way she could sketch, she could drape, she could understand the language of fashion that I had taught her without intending to. But she was also entitled in a way that I refused to see, that I explained away as confidence, as knowing her worth, as the natural result of being raised in success rather than struggle. She evaluated every man I dated. The first when she was 14, a lawyer who lasted 3 months before unexpectedly transferring to another city. The second when she was 19, a musician who told me tearfully that Camilla had misunderstood his intentions when she appeared in his apartment wearing one of my dresses. I didn't believe him. I defended my daughter, accused him of predation, watched him leave with the same relief I felt but couldn't admit. The third when she was 22 lasted longer. A businessman, serious, kind, patient with my schedule. He confessed directly that Camilla had seduced him, that he had rejected her, that she had threatened to tell me everything if he didn't leave. I called him a liar. I threatened him with exposure. I lost him and told myself I had protected my daughter from another predator. I didn't see the pattern, or I saw it but couldn't name it, because naming it would require acknowledging that my daughter, my princess, my product of grief, was not the person I had raised her to be, that she was not damaged by loss but constructed by it, that she had learned from watching me rebuild that the world was something you took rather than something you built, that love was a transaction, that attention was currency, that my success was not inspiration but inventory. Andres appeared 18 months ago. A client in the Barcelona boutique, an architect restoring a historic building, a man who spoke about space and light with the same passion I spoke about fabric and silhouette. He was different, I told myself. Secure, established, not interested in my money. He had his own success, his own history, his own scars from a marriage that ended without the drama of death but with the slower trauma of mutual erosion. Camilla was delighted at first. She helped me select outfits for dates, critiqued his choices, offered to vet him with the confidence of a daughter who believed her judgment superior to mine. Then the comments began. "He's very young, isn't he, for you? Are you sure he's not interested in the business? Men like that. Mother, you've been alone so long, maybe you're seeing things that aren't there." I didn't listen. I was in love, or believed I was, or believed that the possibility of love was worth the risk of being wrong. For the first time in 15 years, I considered marriage. I bought a ring, not waiting for him to choose, because I was a woman who made decisions, who controlled her destiny, who didn't need traditional gestures to validate her choices. I planned the wedding, paid for everything, invited 120 people who represented the network of success I had constructed. The morning of the wedding, I forgot something in the suite I shared with Andres, a bracelet, sentimental, my mother's, that I wanted to wear for the ceremony. I went up, heard sounds, opened the door. Camilla and Andres, naked in the bed I had purchased, the sheets I had selected, the room I had designed. The ring I had bought on Camilla's finger. Her laughter, his surprise, the tableau of betrayal that was so complete it felt almost staged. I didn't react as they expected. I had spent 24 years managing crises, suppliers who failed, employees who stole, markets that crashed, a child who screamed and then demanded and then took. I had learned that emotion is a luxury, that reaction is a weapon others can use, that the only power in a moment of destruction is the power to choose your response. I took out my phone. I photographed them. The positions, the expressions, the ring on her hand, the shock on his face, the laughter frozen on hers. I took multiple angles, the way I photographed new collections for the website, the way I documented everything in my business because documentation was protection, was evidence, was the difference between accusation and proof. I closed the door. I went downstairs. I checked the catering, confirmed the music, greeted guests with the smile I had perfected over decades of retail, the smile that said everything was fine, that the product was worth the price, that the experience would meet expectations. I waited. I served the cake. I gave a toast, thanking everyone for being part of my new beginning, my reclamation of joy, my proof that love is possible at any age. I watched Camilla enter, dressed in the bridesmaid dress I had selected, her makeup perfect, her composure absolute, the performance of a daughter supporting her mother's happiness. Then I signaled the technician. The screen that was supposed to show photographs of my courtship with Andres, the romantic narrative we had constructed for the guests, flickered and changed. The images I had taken that morning appeared. Camilla and Andres, the bed, the ring, the betrayal. The room went silent. Camilla froze, her face transforming from composed to horrified, the mask slipping to reveal the child beneath, the child who had always taken and never been caught, who had never faced consequences because I had never allowed her to. Andres stood up, his face a mixture of guilt and calculation, beginning the explanation I didn't want to hear. I took the microphone from the stand where the singer had been performing and I spoke. 24 years ago, I had a daughter who stole 20 years of sleep, career, and life from me. Not deliberately, not maliciously, but completely because that is what children do, what grief does, what the necessity of rebuilding does to the life you thought you would have. I accepted that. I built around it. I told myself that love was sacrifice, that motherhood was surrender, that my daughter's success was my success, even when her success was built on my exhaustion. Today, that same daughter stole the man I thought would help me reclaim what I had lost. Not because she loved him. She doesn't love anyone, but because she could, because taking from me is what she does, because my happiness is a resource she cannot allow me to possess. I paused. The room was silent. 120 faces frozen in various stages of shock, recognition, voyeuristic fascination. I could see the phones emerging, the recording beginning, the documentation that would make this moment permanent, public, irreversible. But there's something she doesn't know. This man, I gestured at Andres, who had stopped trying to speak, who was watching me with the expression of a man who had underestimated his opponent, is not my fiancé. He's a private detective I hired 6 months ago when I finally allowed myself to see what my accountants had been showing me for years. That my company was bleeding, that inventory was disappearing, that suppliers were being paid for services never delivered, that someone with access and knowledge was systematically draining what I had built. Andres was hired to investigate, to get close, to become someone I might trust, might love, might marry, because my daughter, who knows me better than anyone, would see that as the ultimate prize, the thing to take, the way to finally, completely destroy me. I looked at Camilla, who had gone pale, her composure shattered, her eyes wide with the realization that she had been played, that her trap had been a trap, that the mother she had always underestimated had been planning, waiting, documenting. The photos you just saw are evidence, not of adultery, though they are that, but of conspiracy. My daughter has been stealing from my company for 3 years. $340,000, diverted to private accounts. Inventory sold on black markets. Suppliers paid for ghost deliveries. And 5 years ago, she seduced my then-boyfriend to obtain information about a merger I was planning, then destroyed the relationship when he refused to cooperate further. I walked to the table where Camilla stood, frozen, and I took her hand. The ring, my ring, the one I had purchased, slid off easily, her fingers thin, trembling, suddenly childlike. The ring he gave her this morning is mine. I bought it. The bed is mine. The house is mine. The company is mine. And I held up the ring, let it catch the light, let everyone see it, document it, remember it, like everything else she has taken is just a loan that expires today. Camilla ran. Out of the hall, through the kitchen, past the staff who had worked for me for years, who knew her, who had watched her grow from a child playing with fabric scraps to a woman who took without giving. I let her go. The running was part of the performance, part of the documentation, part of the evidence that would be used in the proceedings that would follow. Andres approached me, his face a mixture of professional respect and personal confusion. He had played a role, I knew, but he had also, perhaps, briefly, in moments I couldn't distinguish from performance, felt something real. The danger of undercover work, the blurring of boundaries, the cost of deception even when it serves justice. "Victoria," he said, "I'm sorry for the part I played, for the deception. For don't be," I said. "You did your job, the question is whether I did mine." The aftermath was legal, public, exhausting. Camilla was arrested for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. Not by me directly, I had provided evidence to authorities, allowed the system to function as it was designed to function. She didn't go to prison. She negotiated, as she had always negotiated, using charm and beauty and the appearance of remorse to reduce consequences. She signed agreements to repay, to surrender inheritance rights, to accept a restraining order that would keep her away from me, my business, my life, for 10 years. I didn't forgive her. I also didn't destroy her. I left her with what she had left her victims, nothing except the possibility of reconstruction if she could, if she would. I didn't believe she would, but I also didn't care enough to prevent it. Andres disappeared from my life as he was always designed to do. I felt something, loss, perhaps, or the memory of what I had wanted to feel, the hope that had been real even if its object was not. I didn't seek him out. I didn't need to. He had served his purpose, and the purpose had been protection, not love. But the experience changed something fundamental. I realized that 15 years of solitude had not been about time or career or the demands of rebuilding. They had been about fear. Fear that Camilla would destroy anything I loved, the way she had destroyed my relationships, my trust, my capacity to believe that anyone could want me without wanting what I had built. And now, with Camilla exposed, with the truth public, with the performance complete, I could finally, perhaps, love without fear. I opened a new boutique, not luxury, second chance, for women who were rebuilding, surviving, learning to love after being robbed. I called it mine. Not irony, declaration. Proof that the only thing that truly belonged to me was my capacity to choose, to love, to forgive or not forgive, to be finally only mine. The epilogue came years later. I was 50, established, surrounded by a community of women who understood without explanation. A young woman entered the boutique, nervous, wearing clothes that didn't fit, carrying a bag that was too large for her frame. She looked at the dresses, the jackets, the pieces that were designed to make women feel powerful without demanding performance. "These are beautiful," she said, "but I don't think I can afford." "Try them on," I said. "The price is whatever you can pay. The fitting is free. The mirror is honest." She tried on a jacket, simple, structured, the kind that made shoulders square and chins lift. She looked at herself, and I saw something change, recognition perhaps of a self that had been hidden, that had been robbed, that was waiting to be reclaimed. "I was stolen from," she said, not looking at me, looking at herself in the mirror. "My sister, my business, my name, everything." I nodded. I had heard this before, I would hear it again. The stories were different in details, identical in structure. The family member who takes, the trust that is exploited, the silence that is demanded, the reconstruction that seems impossible until it isn't. "The thing about being robbed," I said, "is that you spend so much time looking at what was taken, you forget to look at what remains. And what remains is always the most important thing. The capacity to choose, the capacity to rebuild, the capacity to love, even after, even knowing, even with the risk that it might happen again." She bought the jacket. She paid what she could. She returned, months later, wearing it to a job interview, to a meeting, to a life that was slowly, carefully being reconstructed. I didn't know if she would succeed. I didn't know if any of us would succeed, but I knew that the boutique was not just a business. It was a statement. A declaration that what had been taken could be reclaimed, not in its original form, but in a new form, a chosen form, a form that was finally only mine. If someone told you that your love was a resource they could manage, that your success was a product they could consume, that your capacity for joy was something they could control and destroy, hear me. It is not. It was never theirs. It was never alone. It is yours, it has always been yours, and the only expiration date is the one you choose to set. That's my story. If it spoke to you, comment below. If someone stole what you loved and called it family, tell me. I'll read every word. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.